What is up, everyone? Welcome back. We have a special video today with a special guest, Sunny Sharma from originally Personal Mastery Quest was your YouTube channel back in the day when I originally found you.
Yeah.
And now you've kind of covered a lot of topics and a lot of spiritual teachings over the course of you making content, and a lot of them resonate with me very on a very deep level. Originally, we were speaking earlier before transurfing, teaching by Vadim Zeland, teaching by Eckhart Tolle, and more recently, you have been talking about meditation a lot and instructing people on how to meditate, how to truly do it, because it's a topic that is very confusing for a lot of people, myself included. Sometimes I will attempt to meditate, and you don't know if you're doing it right. And I think that Sunny has a very good, for everybody watching this, has a very good grasp on that, and allowing yourself to get into that observer mode and to be aware of the awareness. And it's something that is very powerful when it comes to spiritual growth, but also putting out intention into the world, putting out your energy, detaching from your emotions, and becoming in that place that I talk about, where it's like that calm state of awareness, which is where you have your true power, right? If you're being led by your emotions, whether it's a very high emotion or if it's a low emotion, ultimately you are kind of that faucet, as of the awareness and of your kind of divine energy, that's flowing to you, is kind of turned off. So anyways, with that being said, I'm very excited to have Sunny on the channel today. So
Yeah. Thank you
Sunny,
for having me. Pleasure to be here.
yes, yeah. So yeah, I mean, we were talking before we started, obviously, about all this and how things overlap. What is it's that you've been focusing on lately, or what are some kind of new understandings that you feel like, as you've developed this process that you have of self inquiry? First off, maybe even like share with us what that is exactly.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, as you know, like you said that you came across my channel before when I was really covering the topic of manifestation and reality transurfing, and sort of like that self-inquiry is what that has evolved into now, So like I feel like when I look at my older videos, it's really just like seeing my journey in a way. It's like the evolution of my journey. So it started off with wanting to empower myself. Of course, like we come across these teachings on the spiritual path when we are in a time of like suffering and we feel, it's like a place where we feel weak, insecure, almost like even oftentimes a victim of life. I certainly
Yeah,
did, where you feel like things are
yeah,
happening to you and it is totally out of your control. So then I went through a whole journey of empowering myself, you know, becoming stronger, secure, stable, confident, learning my own creative power, understanding more, like seeking to understand more the laws of nature and coming into alignment with them rather than being in opposition to them always. And that is
yeah.
what allows us to tap into our well being, abundance, just, you know, that feeling of alignment, connectedness. So that was my journey, a couple of years ago, where I was entirely focused on creating the life I want to live.
Yeah.
So
I think that's how everybody gets started with this, right? And it's super, incredibly relatable, because a lot of us feel like that. And I've certainly felt like that. And at times still do, that I am at the effect of my circumstances and my reality rather than at the cause. So, that's great. I love what you said about that too. I think that like the active non-resistance can be incredibly powerful for empowering yourself, because I believe like what you resist persists.
yeah, yeah. So as I was on that journey of self betterment, self improvement, self empowerment, which is what was necessary at that time, going from like a weak, being a weak person to an empowered person. But as I started to have success in those teachings and started to really experience them and started to, in a way, create the life that I really wanted to live, that is where I began to start to observe the condition of mind, even when it has what it previously really desired, you know? So up
Yeah.
until that point, we feel like, hey, happiness is on the other side of this condition or this
Hmm.
achievement or this thing that I really want. Once I have that, then I can be complete. I can be fulfilled. But what I started to discover is that through these teachings, they do allow you to start to influence your reality and start to really have the experiences that you desired. But once the mind starts to receive what it desires, it doesn't actually change anything. You know, it experiences that pleasure, but now it just desires something other or something more, or just like more of the same thing. So I started to
Right.
observe this condition of mind where it was previously I thought my suffering and misery was because of what I lacked in life, object
Yeah,
wise, material
absolutely.
possession wise. But then when I started to really experience the things that I wanted and achieve the things that I wanted, I started to discover that the mind still feels that lack, still feels unfulfilled. And now it just changes the goalpost to something else. And it says now fulfillment is on the other side. That is a condition of mind that I started to observe that, like, it is inherently restless. No matter what it gets, it is just like a bottomless pit of this feeling of lack and incompleteness. And so I think it is relevant for all of us to achieve what we want to a certain extent, continue to strive to achieve what we want to a certain extent. But then at a certain point, we do have to look within ourselves and really start to grow in the realization and not just like, oh, oh yeah, I know about this, or I've heard it, or I understand it. No, we have to really like grow in the realization that our happiness does not lie outside of ourselves, that nothing in the experiential realm of the five senses can bring you fulfillment. When I was becoming ready for that realization, that's when the teaching of self inquiry came into my life. The
Mhm.
self inquiry is really just sort of like an introspective reflection, a meditation on who you really are, you know, what you really are. It is like learning to recognize that everything in life is changeful, it is impermanent, it is transient, that it doesn't have the capacity to fulfill.
Yeah.
And so it is also learning to self inquiry is also the process of recognizing that the ego, which desires so many of these experiences, is itself a changeful experience that I am not. So self
Mhm.
inquiry, the main question is, who am I? So it is where we learn to turn our gaze away from experiences for the first time to ourself, that which is aware of experiences.
Yeah.
So that was like the powerful shift for me during that time where for the first time ever when these teachings came into my life, my gaze was no longer okay on what I'm aware of, like what
Mhm.
experience I can have next, or what can I change. It started to go inward towards what is all of this? Why am I here? What am I? And what is it that feels lack? What is it that is constantly restless? Is that what I am? So it's like a whole process of introspection, which helps you dissolve identification with all that you are not and starts to really ground you in the understanding of your true nature, your true self.
Yeah. Beautifully said. And I think that what you said is very true. Like, I think that as part of that path of this awareness, developing this understanding, like Buddha was a prince at first, right? He had these physical things in the physical, on the physical plane. And I think for a lot of us, we need to achieve those things because we feel this this nagging sense of lack and incapability of, being at cause, being the one that's able to generate change in our reality. But like you said, once you start getting those things, once you start receiving the things that your desires that you've been wanting, that's when you get that realization that, wait a second, the grass is always greener. The grass continues to be greener, and no matter what type of goal that I achieve, there's still this kind of nagging sense there that there's still this incomplete feeling, as if there will never be enough. And I think that on that journey, and when you start doing that that's it makes perfect sense that at that point, that's when you start to introspect and say, hey, look, exactly, like, I have this ego identification with either my material possessions or my achievements, or my status in the world, or my perception of myself, my vanity, the way that I look, all these different things that are external. And then you just realize that, what is it that I need to do? Ultimately, I feel like it's about filling your own cup, right? Because if you're constantly seeking external validation from everything in your, you are at a complete loss of power. You just now disempowered yourself, because anything can happen. At any moment in time, you could get a blemish, and if you're an incredibly vain person, well, now that's messed with your self image. Now that's messed with your cup. And there's all kinds of things in our environment, and of course, like you said, life is a constant process of change. And if we resist that change, if we resist all the process of change that occurs in life, and the transitory nature of life, then we're setting ourselves up for suffering, as you said.
Yeah.
So
The
yeah.
mind invests its sense of security, stability, and identity in things, right? So material
Yes.
possessions, in the state of the body, in titles, in belief systems, in people. So
Hmm.
when it has these things, it has a false sense of confidence. I say it is a false sense of confidence because it is a very shaky confidence. The moment one thing is taken away from the mind, that confidence is broken. And you know how quickly we fall into that state of suffering when we
Yes.
lose something.
Hmm.
So, meditation, or just really the spiritual path in general, is to grow in the understanding of our true nature, where true stability, identity, security, well being, right? That's like the source of it. So we're no longer resting our sense of fulfillment or sense of self on what we have or what we look
Hmm.
like, what life appears to be in this moment.
Hmm.
As long as that identification is there, then we will always be restless because experience is constantly changing.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think that one thing that's hard for people to reconcile, including myself, is like, on one hand, I understand this, like what we're talking about, and it is true. It is absolutely true. And on the other hand, yet we still live in our physical form, in our physical bodies. And in order to have, comfort in our lives or whatever, like, we do want to make sure that we are having a good source of income, that we are having healthy relationships, that we are having these kind of external things in order, so to speak. And so, how do you kind of reconcile like the two kind of, it's almost like a paradox, right? I mean, and it seems to me that the more that do what you're saying and actually are self fulfilled from within that internal source, the easier time it will actually be to sustain those physical things in your physical reality. That's been my experience. I know that when I place too much importance on whatever physical external thing it might be, that's when those things start to slip away from me.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That itself, creating that balance is itself a journey. Like it's not just a switch that we should wait for, like, oh, I need to receive this clarity and then I
Yeah.
can, go about it. We actually have to now, as this teaching comes into our life, like we have to experiment and also, through our own self-reflection, start to balance the two. You have to see that, like, of course, on the personal level, you will have a theme that is unfolding for you. There are certain things that you are drawn towards, certain interests you have, certain talents you possess, certain desires you have to, be of service in whatever way. So a fulfilling way to go about it is to embrace all of those interests and talents and do the work you are meant to in this life. Play the role that you have been, that you find yourself in.
Mhm.
Don't do it only for selfish interest,
Right.
right? Like,
Yeah.
so we have to reflect within our own self that, like, hey, everything I'm doing is just to, like, constantly gain, 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 gain. And at a certain level, that is okay, because of course you desire well-being for yourself. You should continue acting in a way that creates well-being for yourself, but also well-being for others. So it's like, how do you create well-being for others? By living your truest, most authentic expression. The beauty of
Mhm.
life is that when you are playing your role authentically, you are not only of service to yourself, but also to others. This way of living life as fulfilling is because it's not only focused in just creating benefit for yourself. and often at the expense of others also. This way of life is like just letting your expression of life, like whatever, Alex is, whatever Sunny is, like let that expression dance and become what it is meant to.
Hmm.
Right now,
Yeah.
like, our expression is hindered by so many fears, insecurities, constant restlessness to achieve and gain. When we start to reflect, and this is what meditation is ultimately for, is to cleanse the mind from all of these things so that our expression can just fully realize itself. And then in that, you are in service to yourself and everybody else. And that will come with well-being, that will come with the abundance you seek. But like in the beginning, the mind is just, it doesn't want to do that work. It just feels like, hey, no, but I need to do this, I need to get this, I need to achieve
Mhm.
this
Yeah.
in order to be fulfilled.
And
So
there's sorry, go ahead.
no, it's
Well, I was just gonna say there's that urgency too with that, which is and when you're looking constantly for that external sources of validation, that's when yeah, you have, like you said, and you kind of get on this rat race. It's oh, I need to do this, I need to do this job because my parents are going to approve of me because I'm doing this, or my peers are going to give me a pat on the back, a metaphorical pat on the back because I'm doing this. And that external, like, I guess, locus of control, outwardly focused all the time, will ultimately lead you down a path that is not true to yourself and it's not authentic to you.
yeah, well said.
And so yeah, and I love the way that you broke that down there. And
That's one of
have
the
you heard?
big things. Sorry, just to before we go on to the
No, yeah,
next thing, I
absolutely.
wanted to just say that like that is the type of self-reflection that benefits us the most. So it's like
Yeah.
you have to see, why do I do the things that I do? Right? Like
Hmm.
what am I trying to gain from it? Is like sometimes it is the approval of others, maybe our friends or maybe like our parents, family members. Sometimes we
Hmm.
just want to be better than our peer group.
Yeah.
Sometimes we just want to prove things to others or even ourselves. Like those are the type of egoic motives that we have to become aware of and start to let go of. We must do our work for the sake of enjoyment, for the sake of like living our true expression, right? For like whatever we
Hmm.
are interested in bringing into to the world. And in that way,
Yeah.
our work is fruitful. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And I talk a lot, I'm a big fan of like a holistic approach when it comes to
Mhm.
self-development because I think that everything is having an effect on you all the time. The information you're taking in, the food you're eating, if you start drinking a lot, if you start giving into addictive impulses, you're going to be more cut off from that inner voice inside your head. And even if you try self-inquiry, let's say that you're on a binge drinking phase, or you're just eating, crappy food all the time, you're not really going to get those answers. You're also not going to even have the discipline or the awareness to even
Yeah.
sit with that in that
Exactly.
stillness. And so that everything is tied together. And that's what I try to talk to people about, is like being aware of everything that you're taking in, because we're spiritual beings, we're physical beings. What kind of food are you eating? What's your diet look like? Who are you surrounding yourself with? What is the information that you're intaking all the time? Because if you're watching all this gossip and trashy reality TV shows, your sense of self, your sense of reality is going to be informed by that. You're looking at that now saying, "Oh, I should be like this. I should be like them." You've lost sense of your own inner understanding of things, your own
Yeah.
inner awareness, and that internal voice is saying, "Hey, look, like that's actually BS. That doesn't matter. What matters is like the way that I show up, the way that I'm showing up for my partner, the way that I'm showing up for my family, and I know what that is. And it's not these external things. It's not all of these things that society or the media is telling me. And unfortunately, we tend to live in it. We do live in a very negative environment where all kinds of toxic habits and all kinds of things are the norm. And so it's very important to be aware of that and aware of what you're taking in on a physical and energetic level,
Yeah.
information level.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah. And I guess, what were we just discussing earlier? Because there was another point of something that you said that made me have an idea of a topic that I wanted to talk about. Let's see.
Don't remember exactly.
Yeah, it's all good. Well, the so when it comes to, I guess, like allowing that inner voice, we're talking about. Have you heard of Dan Coe? He's like a creator, a YouTuber.
I think I may have seen a video or two. Yeah.
Yeah, so he has all these videos and he's talking about philosophy, but also business and stuff. And he's actually been talking lately about how, um, making money and business is actually a path of spiritual growth. And I would, I think that following your curiosity, kind of like what we talked about before, and allowing yourself to be in touch with, yeah, your preferences, your interests, and what following your its excitement is, again, I mean, that kind of to me is a bit of an alignment with self inquiry. It sounds like, where it's like you're having that dialogue with yourself, that conversation with yourself, and being honest with yourself and saying, oh, what is it that I can, almost like the process of that of ikigai, where it talks about what is it that I'm good at, that I can bring value to the world, and that can also bring me a source of income or something. And I think that in today's modern world, that can be a nice, healthy approach to kind of like some of these spiritual ideas, because we're not in a time, most of us, where we're going to just be sitting and like meditating on a mountaintop, right? um what are your thoughts on that, and on like perhaps, yeah, business as a as an avenue for evolving yourself?
Yeah. You see, that itself is a misconception about the spiritual path, that like you have to withdraw from everything and just meditate for hours per day. That
Yeah.
is definitely not the purpose of it. And it's definitely not what the teaching asks of us to do. Everything in your life, whether it is business or let's say you just maybe you have a regular conventional job or your relationships or your personal interests, the personal challenges you go through. Everything is an avenue for spiritual growth. Once you
Hmm.
start to understand this, then you start to look at your challenges in a much different way. Life, all of personal life is the arena for spiritual practice, where we face limitation and outgrow limitation. So the path of meditation, spirituality, self realization is not to just withdraw from challenge, withdraw from life. It is to bring this understanding into the very simple day to day interactions, day to day life challenges. And of course, that includes business. Of course, that includes personal life. Like, we feel like we can only learn from people or books or things, but that's not true. Once we start to embark on this spiritual journey, we must see that anything and everything and everyone that we come across is a teacher of some sort to us, whether that
Hmm.
is and it could be the very person that you despise so much because maybe they're causing you a problem. But that is the very experience you need to go through to grow in a particular type of way and learn what you need to learn. Once you change the lens through which you look at these problems and challenges, once you start to see them as your teachers, as your arena for spiritual growth, then you can now start to implement all of these practices. You can
Hmm.
start to really embody the spiritual teaching, and that will help
Yeah.
you, one, not only it will help you navigate the problem without suffering, but it will also, of course, like will help you overcome and, more importantly, grow in the understanding of your true nature more and more. So it
Yeah.
serves a personal purpose and benefit and also a spiritual benefit.
Yeah. And I totally agree with what you're saying, especially on a macro level. And often hindsight is 2020. You go through something that's rough, and looking back on it, you're like, wow, that helped me realize something, that helped me grow. It was a tool for growth. Do you have any tools in the moment on a more micro level, like when you're getting really triggered, like let's say somebody's being really rude to you or disrespectful, or I guess like in all of these situations, rudeness, disrespect, let's say that you're going through emotional or psychological abuse, or somebody's being very manipulative and gaslighting you, using manipulation tactics on you. What kind of tools, and what would you recommend people to do in these types of situations where your emotions are flaring up?
The what is actually needed in all these different types of situations is always unique, and
Yeah.
the demands of every situation are different. So how do we discover how to act in each different moment and each different unique situation? We have to, it is a process of self observation, right? Where you have to step out of the mind and simply into whatever you are feeling in that moment. You see, the mind is just like a relaying of it's just like a mental commentary about what is happening, about what
Hmm.
it means for me, about what this will turn into. Notice I'm saying it's a commentary about life. It does not actually portray life as it is. It is a commentary about what it thinks it is, thinks it will be, you know, thinks if it is good for you or not. So that is all conceptual. And here is where we suffer in these concepts about what it is, about what this means for me, about what I have to gain or lose from it, about where it will turn into. If we remain here, we are not receptive to the demands of this moment. If we remain here, we suffer deeply. We remain lost in our interpretations of life, interpretations of others, interpretations of past and future. So, in those moments when we feel emotionally triggered, we have to bring our attention away from these thoughts and simply, in just a simple practical thing, just bring your attention to your actual feelings, to your actual sensations that you are experiencing in those moments, and learn to allow experience. The mind wants to very quickly judge, it wants to react, it wants to project. Step out of the mind, let go of the need to immediately react or judge or fight against. Don't be at conflict with this moment. Just feel into it. Experience it for what it is in this moment. When we stop to resist, when we stop resisting here and now, just for this moment, there's like a window of clarity that opens up from where, from within you, you start to be guided towards what is right for this moment, how to act in this moment, how to
Yeah.
resolve whatever issue has arisen in this moment. You see, it comes from stillness. It does not come from worrying and reacting and resisting. That is something which totally blocks you. It contracts
Hmm.
you into a frequency where no real solution or well being is possible. And so,
Yeah.
if we want to create a better future for ourselves, we have to step out of that. And the way we do it, we have to step out of the mental commentary. We have to
Yeah.
redirect our attention away from it. Mhm.
Yeah. And then, you know, what those negative situations are doing, they're trying to pull you into that dark energy, I think. Because whether it's a bar fight or whether it's somebody being very nasty to you and, like whatever, gaslighting you, whatever it might be, um those things, if you meet them head on and if you combat them, again, like it's that what you resist persists. Now you're getting drawn into this thing and allowing yourself to get caught up in it. And oftentimes the best thing, like you said, if you're not defending against it, if there's nothing to defend, if you're just simply allowing those feelings to be there, the best solution in those both of those situations is oftentimes probably just to walk away, right? You're not going to get much benefit out of engaging somebody in a physical confrontation or an emotional verbal confrontation. A lot of the times it can be, healthy to actually just take a step away. And if it's something where, this person is a part of your life, then you can revisit the situation once you both have calmed down, probably is the better alternative in that situation, I would think.
Yeah. Sometimes it is appropriate to simply watch it unfold and step back. Sometimes it is needed to act, right? Again, when we start to process all these things through stillness rather than reaction, then we are guided more and more so in that moment. We are
Yeah.
receptive to that subtler intelligence on how to act in each situation. And even when we do make a mistake, then we are able to learn from it rather than be once again like blinded and just like fighting for our belief system or something that we were like, fighting for like a mental position. So
Hmm.
you see, that's like the entanglement of ego where we just like it creates dysfunction in our life. It just so invested in getting its own way or proving its worth or proving that it's right. But sometimes we are wrong. And the clarity and humility that allows us to admit that won't surface until we step out of reaction into stillness,
Hmm.
into observing, into, awareness. So awareness is the cleanser of the mind. Awareness is the bringer of clarity. It brings all clarity, understanding. It allows us to detach from reactiveness, which only creates dysfunction and suffering. Yeah.
Yeah. And just to round this point out, I mean, the two examples that I just gave, like if you're like the physical confrontation thing, I mean, there's actually a thing in Vadim Zeland's book Transurfing where he says that when somebody's trying to do that to you or somebody's trying to engage you in some sort of physical confrontation, one of the best things you could do is do something completely unexpected. If you start acting like a crazy person or whatever. And how I would tie this into what you're saying is that you get these little bursts of intuition, especially if you're in a sense of uh, maybe physical danger, maybe whatever, where you might be compelled to do something like that. If somebody's like on like a pickpocket or on the subway and threatening you, you might like by allowing that stillness to be there and by not like combating it head on and having that inner voice, you may be compelled intuitively to act in a way which naturally diffuses the situation. And it's just an interesting thing for me, as well as
Yeah.
with the emotional gaslighting or whatever. You might have, the body doesn't lie. There's that book, The Body Keeps Score, and a lot of the times you can see through it, especially when you allow yourself to feel like you're saying you allow those. You just be present with it. And you're like, wow, this person is really like being manipulative here in this situation, and I can tell. But if you have that emotional reactivity and just come on like this, it's just perpetuating more of the same, and now you both kind of gone into that reactive combative energy, right? That's not serving anybody. um so very interesting. And I guess that's a good segue into like a lot of the times, one of the things that we struggle with, I think, mentally and internally, obviously, is self-worth and self-love. But, um, and like it's so interesting to me because I always feel like I believe in manifesting. I believe that there's always like you're always playing a part, but I also believe that everybody else is playing a part. I'm not full on into that belief that you've created every single thing. Like people talk about this and it's like, no, like, and I've heard other people talk about this, but it's like, I didn't like create COVID or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like, there was nothing going on in me consciously. And so I think that both things can be true. And I think that's also a very high powerful thing to be able to hold in your awareness that two things can be true at once. I am participating and my energy is going out into the world and creating circumstances around me, but also I'm being affected by the world. And then the world is creating things for me. Would you agree with that, or kind of how do you reconcile that in your understanding?
Yeah. There are different lenses through which life is viewed at different phases of the journey, So
Yeah.
the lens that I am the creator of my life, it may be a very useful lens at a particular phase of our journey where we have to empower ourselves. And during that time, we'd really feel like we experience life in that way. Of course, there are, anybody that claims that I create everything is like little bit diluted because you see that like there's so many things in your life that you're not controlling. So
Right.
although yeah, it is true that the overall energy that you put out and the nature of your thoughts and the way you feel about yourself and the way you perceive the world, it determines the nature of your circumstances, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
attracts like in that way. To really say that I control everything, that is not true, even when seeing through that lens. And we just have to be honest to ourselves, and we need to
Mm-hmm.
understand that. We don't
Yeah.
have to falsely affirm a belief that's not true.
Great. Yeah.
So we start with that belief that, hey, I am the creator of my life. As we start to grow in our spiritual understanding, we actually start to become more and more open that everything happens on its own.
Interesting.
So it's not that one is right and the other is wrong. It's just that there are different levels of understanding and different different, like it's a different
Yeah.
spectrum of
Absolutely.
seeing
Yeah.
things. The more we
Yeah.
grow in our understanding of our true self, the less and less personal we become, the less and less like me and mine there is. The whole notion of control is seen through a different lens. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's super. Yeah, so I think that we're on the same page with that, and this reminds me, one of the things I love about Vadim Zeland's his approach is he doesn't really use the word creating. He says choosing, and I like that because it's kind of a little bit of an acknowledgement that look, we're not creating literally everything around us. I mean, a lot of it is we are, and I like that we're on the same page that like yes, we are having an impact, but also life is having an impact on us. You know, in the Kabbalion it says the all is like we are a part of the all. The all is everything, but the all is also in us, and the ability to those two diametrically kind of opposed ideas being true at the same time can help us allow us to be more free in our understanding of this stuff. And I think that by choosing our reality, it's like, yeah, now we're participating because everything is available to us, or there's so much available to us in the world, right? But what is it that we're choosing? What kind of timeline or what kind of lifeline or what kind of reality is it that we're picking for ourselves? And a lot of the time, that's where's our focus? Where focus goes, where energy goes, where attention goes, energy flows. And so I think there's a lot of just value to not have like this super hard dogmatic approach. It's like, oh yeah, I'm creating every single thing. um it's important to be flexible in our understanding, and I think that you do a great job of that with like everything that you discuss and
Thanks.
and teach. Yeah,
I think a healthy approach is work to create well-being in your life. Do what you are here to do and do what you enjoy, while at the same time always be surrendered to this moment, surrender to the outcome. You can control, like in the Bhagavad Gita, which is a ancient Indian text. It
yeah,
is suggested that you have the right to your work, but you do not have the right to the fruits of your work, and neither
yeah.
do you
I
have
love.
the control over the fruits of your work. So
Yeah,
find enjoyment in the work itself. You know, again, seek to create well-being in your life. Put out whatever intention and do whatever work you want and try to move towards whatever you want to achieve, but remain completely surrendered. Never be in conflict with this moment, not a future moment, not forget all that. Surrender and acceptance of this moment. In that, we cannot suffer. And in that,
mhm,
we continue to just, move forward towards a positive future.
yeah. I love that. Bringing up the Bhagavad Gita, that do you believe in karma? That makes me curious.
So the what I focus on in the way that I share this teaching in my channel, we don't focus too much on the whole notion of karma.
Yeah,
However, yes, I do believe that karma is one of the laws of nature, that it is a string of cause and effect.
yeah,
It is basically the again the energy you're putting out, the intention, the motive that you're working with or doing anything with. It is it is like what is breeding more impressions of the same nature into your
yeah.
experience, into the mind. So yeah, of course, that is at play, and it is very easy to observe as we go about life.
Yeah, and I would like it. I mean, it seems like you said, like the cause and effect. That's one of the seven hermetic principles, right? And also the law of correspondence is a similar law as well. So, I think that in my opinion too, yeah, like I think that if you were operating from a place of negativity and like I think that part of the thing that's so powerful about like doing your work and like we talked about before, like doing it as a path for your own growth, but also to positively impact others. The world is reciprocal. The world is reciprocal in nature, and I think that that's what can create. That's a lot of the times you see people have good lives that are created from that positive intention towards others. I think that when you get that inverted, you see a lot of people meet with unfortunate circumstances. Those that are directing harm at others, those that are being deceitful, being vengeful, being just putting out that dark energy towards people. A lot of the times, it comes and bites them um, back.
Yeah,
And I've witnessed it in my own. I've seen it in my own life. I've had friends that have done this. I've had people in my life that are like that, and it doesn't usually end up very good for them.
exactly. Whatever motive that we take action with, the nature of that motive, those are the types of seeds we are planting in
Hmm.
our life, and then we are forced to experience the fruit of those seeds. So some seeds will grow up to be, bear really sweet fruit, but some
Hmm.
will grow to bear really bitter fruits. So
Yeah,
the way to, from this whole system of karma, the way to dissolve karma or to outgrow karma or use it to your benefit, whichever, perspective resonates with you, is to is total acceptance of whatever fruit is arising in this moment, right? So if it is negative, unpleasant fruit that is arising in this moment for you, don't resist, don't battle, because in resisting, in battling, you will only once again sow really negative fruit
Yeah.
that you'll have to once again reap. So total acceptance of whatever fruit is arising and plant positive seeds now. And
Yeah.
that way,
Absolutely.
in the future, you will reap the benefit of that.
Yeah. Because if you fight that negative energy with more negative energy, you're going to create that. Like you said, you're going to start planting those seeds, and you don't want to plant those seeds.
Exactly.
And a lot of the time, I talk on my channel about how the mind is like a garden, and it's imperative. The mind, like you mentioned at the beginning of this, has this way of going on. The monkey mind, the chatter of the mind, the negative self talk that we're all prone to. Napoleon Hill has that book, Outwitting the Devil. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but it people are sometimes off put by religious kind of phrasing, but sometimes that's the easiest framework to talk about this stuff. But like that negative voice on your shoulder, whatever you want to call it, you have to, like you said, shift your attention away from it. You have to gently shift it away, because if you try to fight with it, you're getting dragged down into that negative energy. And it's about cultivating that beautiful garden in your mind, focusing on the
Yes.
the higher the higher things in life, the beautiful things in life, focusing on things of virtue, things of uh of of beauty in your life, and
Yes.
surrounding yourself with positive people. And I think it's very, very important, again, that we take a look and be honest with ourselves, because sometimes we get pulled in these relationships with these toxic people that are not good for us. Very manipulative people, very deceptive people, very people that are, and I'm not even coming at this from a thing of like blame. I think that there's a generational aspect to this. I think that there are forces at play. People had experiences in their childhood, and they end up acting out these things that they've experienced. But it becomes very important for us at a certain point in time to protect ourselves, and to, again, cultivate that garden in our life, in our mind, so that we can be so that we can be like receive like positivity, and then, because we have to fill our own cup first. And if people are poking holes in our cup, then we won't be able to provide for others as well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I call it there's this battle of lower nature and higher nature always active within us,
Yeah.
So the lower nature is like the motives which arise, right? Like self-seeking or anger or resentment, resistance. Notice how these motives are also seeking happiness. When you are angry and you want to hurt someone, it's
Yeah.
it's not because you think that that will create more suffering. Like in that moment, you think that hurting someone or doing like being angry is somehow like right, and it will make things right, and it will bring happiness. So even
Yeah.
the motive of anger is actually happiness, of resentment is
Hmm.
happiness. Like you feel like someone has done something wrong to you, and now you deserve to be resentful for the rest of your life and hate this person because you feel somehow that
No.
that is creating happiness for you. So we have to see
Hmm.
that the lower nature claims that this will make us happy. But we just have to observe within our own lives that, like, when we do act on our lower nature, our lower tendencies, it creates nothing but dysfunction, pain, suffering. Once
Yes.
we start to, through
Absolutely.
our own observations, see that, even though the pull of the lower nature is so hard in those moments, so
Yeah.
strong, we will gain through our greater awareness, we will be able to choose our higher nature, which is,
Hmm.
forgiveness, openness, generosity,
Hmm. Yeah.
selflessness. Um, yeah, just like we know within ourselves like what is lower and what is higher. So
Yep.
through our self-observation, we always must strive to choose the higher, because in doing so, not only do we create happiness for ourselves, but also for everybody else. And then we
Exactly.
also reap a better future from it.
Yeah, and then we won't turn into a very bitter person. A lot of people that you see that are older, they become very jaded by sayings, and a lot of the times, forgiveness, it's not about the other person. Forgiveness is not about the other person. It's about for yourself. You do it for yourself, so you're not holding on to all of that. And again, like that's where your teachings become so valuable, is allowing, like you said before, like to feel those feelings, allow, like the practices that you teach on your channel are all about this, are all about um being able to kind of dialogue with that higher nature that you're talking about, and not fall into these lower patterns. And so,
The
I think it's
dialogue
just
with the higher nature is actually silence. The
yeah,
question,
yeah,
who am I, actually only leads you to that which is beyond the mind,
yeah,
and it is silent awareness. But yeah, like
yeah,
that's why I totally shifted the focus of my channel a few years back. Is not that I don't like I just felt that I'm no longer the best person to teach manifestation, because my
yeah.
focus and my whole theme of life has shifted. And I just
Hmm.
realized that, like, until we start to do this inner reflection and inner cleansing and start to really grow in the understanding of who we truly are, you just can't be happy no matter
Yeah,
what we do or achieve,
for
so
sure.
yeah.
And it's tangible, man. Like I can feel this calm, this incredibly serene, calm, peaceful energy from you that I, to be honest with you, I don't see from very many people. Very a lot of people, and probably myself included, I carry tension a lot of the time because I'm just, I'm like, I'm focused on my goals, I'm focused on this, and then you're just like totally like zened out. And it's really cool actually talking to you, because I can feel that place of peace that you're
Very
at.
good.
And
I think that
um
is deep within all of us,
yeah,
so we just have to become more and more open and receptive to it.
yeah,
Our constant immersion in our mental dialogue, which is always projecting ideas about future and past, what I have done, what I have not done, what I need,
yeah,
what I like, what I don't like. That is what closes us off to it, to this inner well of peace and well-being. The more we step out of that into our awareness,
yeah.
then we start to find that peace is actually unconditional. That, like, hey, there's this stable peacefulness despite what is happening outside.
Mhm.
That is a very, very powerful thing.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I'd like to segue this. I'd like to talk about like coming from that place that you're talking about, that place of calm, that place of that you mentioned just before. It's like silence. That's the dialogue with the higher nature. Have you been able to, and in your opinion, how does that, like, how are you able to use that in terms of your intuition in your life, whether it's following a certain path, following a certain thing, doing a certain thing, creativity in your creative work? How does that work for you, and how are you able to kind of use that? Because I noticed for myself, like that's when I get more intuitive, and I'd
Yeah,
love to hear your
absolutely.
thoughts.
Well, firstly, like, this isn't like any permanent state I've achieved or anything like that. I still
Yeah,
struggle with many of the mental things, and this is an ongoing journey for me as well. So
yeah,
I share what I have discovered and what I experience on this path, but for sure, like, this is an ever expanding thing for me, and ever growing journey, ever growing practice that I myself am doing. So as I've matured in this in the past few years, as I practice this, though, I will say that, again, as I said earlier, what what lies, you know, beyond or underneath this whole filth of fears and insecurities and desires for approval and this and that, what lies is our natural expression. you know it's just our natural expression. So once we start to become empty of all of those other things, once we start to, like, through our own self observation and through our own meditation, we start to become free from these fears, these insecurities, and all these things, what lies there is your true expression, creativity, well-being, joy, happiness. So of course, like, that is the place from where you become more receptive, more internally connected to what is right for you, how to navigate
mhm,
your life properly without suffering, where to
yeah,
go, which direction to head in. Of course, the future is always uncertain, but it's like, how do we navigate where to go? That intuition we are blind to when we're lost in fears and insecurities and all that stuff. But we start to become more receptive to it, as we start to become more grounded in ourselves. So I've definitely experienced that, where now there's a greater clarity, hey, in what I need to do and when, how
mhm,
I need to do it, for how long. These aren't things
yeah,
that you can plan, because life changes so quickly. But it's like we we are more receptive to the needs of this moment.
Mhm.
Yeah.
How do you experience that for you personally? I know that I've been in states where this has happened. There's been phases of my life where I'm just much more tapped in, and I kind of get like these nudges, and it's almost it can come from me in different forms. But for you, is it like a tangible experience? Like you just feel compelled to do a certain thing, or you just have like a voice in your head, or how do you kind of experience that
As
for
you said,
yourself?
it's just a feeling of what's right,
Yeah.
feeling of what is, what you feel drawn towards. This feeling of
Hmm.
resonance always shows us where our journey is headed, whether that
Yeah.
is spiritually or personally, right? Like personally, it's like, why do you have the interests that you do? Why did you start a YouTube channel? Why do you work this job? It's not because you chose it. It's like that interest was born in your mind, that like
Hmm.
something drew you towards that. So personally, you're always being drawn towards something. We become willing to act on that intuition as we start to grow more clear, right? About who, like, and more
Yeah.
introspective. Because otherwise, like, where maybe we feel drawn. Let's say we in the beginning when I was thinking about starting a YouTube channel, I knew I was being drawn towards it many years ago, right? But you do know it took
Yeah.
me a year and a half to actually become willing to
Yeah.
get over my fear.
It took me longer. It took me way longer actually.
So you, so you see, like we're always being drawn towards something, but because
Yeah.
of our fears and insecurities and whatnot, we are reluctant to pursue that. When we start to, through meditation and self reflection and acceptance, we start to become clear of these fears and stuff. Then we are
Hmm.
able to steer our life wherever we feel this pull, and
Yeah.
without the, oh, what's going to happen? Is this going to succeed? Am I going to, all these fears
Yeah,
and
like
worries.
all that anxiety, yeah. So, I
Exactly.
don't know if this is something that you ever tried or anything, but, what you said just now reminds me of actually very specific experience that I had, and I haven't ever shared this. I don't think I've actually ever shared this on my YouTube channel, but years ago, almost a decade ago now, I was on spring break in South Padre Island, Texas. And I believe at this point in time, I was under the influence of psychedelics. I don't remember if it was mushrooms or what it was that I had. And there was a we were on spring break and everyone was partying, right? Like everyone was just drinking and doing everything, right? But there was this group of church people that had built this massive sand thing that was a biblical thing, and it was actually extremely impressive on the beach. Because I guess they wanted to, leave their positive influence there on what they thought was just, like sinful activity or something. And what had happened was after this like rave that I had gone to, I went and I sat on this hill, which at this point was, they had messed it up, and but it was a hill remained in the sand on the beach overlooking the water. And I heard literally a voice with such conviction in my head that told me I need to create a YouTube channel. I need to record videos. I need to do this. And that it was like it was a voice that was I guess clear audience, but it was also a feeling of just this absolute like knowing with absolute conviction
Yeah.
that as if I had received this message, and that this was the path that I needed to go on. But again, it took me years to actually fully lean into this and now
Yeah.
be doing this on a consistent basis. And it's such a I think sometimes we have these experiences, and I don't know if you've had experiences like this or not, but I think that like for me, having that type of thing has like led me down this path where I'm so interested in all of these different topics and spirituality and metaphysics and all these things, because that experience is something that, experientially, once you've experienced something like that, it's just like you can't forget about it. And yeah, like I don't know, if you'd be open to discussing anything, or if you ever tried any psychedelics, but when I've been under the influence of that, I feel like I'm very, aware, like those anxieties and the fears you're talking about, they melt away, and there's a lot of clarity there. Also, I've noticed that when I'm taking action, a lot of action in my life, and I've got a lot of momentum. I was doing sales at that time as well. And me doing the act of sales, like walking by faith, walking with this intuition, because I believe faith is an action as well. People think faith is a feeling, or it's a word, or it's a phrase, or it's this teaching in the Bible. But like true faith is taking action on that thing because you have such conviction that this is your truth, and that's what you're doing. So then it shows up in the world as a physical manifestation of that faith.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Um,
Yeah. No, I haven't ever done any psychedelics. Just never felt drawn to it. I'd say the
yeah.
best psychedelic I've ever done was meditation.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
so see, meditation is not just like so in meditation you may have crazy experiences and all these things, and they're good, that they're fine. Oftentimes though, they do become a trap for people because they feel like that's the purpose of spirituality, to have these types of crazy experiences, whereas like these experiences are actually just like nudges to us. They nudge us in the right direction of like
Yeah.
what to seek, where to go. So
Hmm.
they should be used in that way, but also then forgotten about, meaning, or not forgotten about, but like just like outgrown. Like we
Yeah.
shouldn't cling to them, right? Like
He's like not chasing them all the time, right?
exactly,
Like
exactly.
these
So
super, super peak experiences or whatever they're called.
exactly. Let them come when they come, which they will, but then let them go also. I recommend to everybody.
Yeah.
And then it's just, you know, ultimately the spiritual journey is about becoming more and more clear about how life actually is, more and more clear about who I actually am, what I actually am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I agree with you. Like chasing that experience too, it's kind of just like chasing all those physical things in the world, right? You chasing money, chasing
Exactly.
relationships, and it's actually probably going to distance you from it. However, I would love and enjoy to have more of those kinds of like, and it doesn't have to be such a fantastical experience as the one I described, but just those little downloads, just those little nudges where it's
Exactly.
just on a continuous basis. Okay, this is what I need to do. This is what I need to do. And I think again, like action can help with that because when you're taking action, it's a sign to the universe. It's a sign that you are on your path. If you're ignoring that voice in your head, that maybe then that's when it starts to get quieter as well, right? If you don't take the actions and
Yeah.
follow those signs.
I like that you said like those downloads, and notice how it
Yeah,
is like that, right? Like you don't make them happen.
yeah,
These ideas, these creative like visions, or this intuitive understanding, a realization about how things actually are, they happen to you. They shine in the mind. They are not a byproduct of the mind. Like mind doesn't make it
mhm,
happen. The mind
yeah,
is bestowed this understanding. So how to have it more often, which all of us want, is we have to step out of our current worldview, which is constantly being reinforced by our mental chatter.
yeah,
You see, like the more we step out of that into silence, into just pristine, clear presence of awareness,
yeah,
we are more receptive to those higher frequencies, those
yeah,
that the greater understanding, something which is outside of our current worldview.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's something that I would love to work on because I'm a very logical person. And people tell me before, I'm overthinking things or whatever, but that's just how I am. I constantly, especially when I'm doing things, I like to get a lot of different perspectives. So I'll discuss things with a lot of different people, and that's just like kind of my personality. But I also like if you have, I would be really, really keen, and I can leave the links down below for people to check out. If you have, I've seen that you've dropped some specific meditations on your channel, but ways to kind of get out of my own way, get out of our own heads and allow that to be. And I know that you have content on
Mm.
that. So is there a specific one that you tend to use on a daily basis? And I'd be curious as well, like what is your routine? Do you have a morning routine that consists of meditation? Like if you'd be willing to share any of that as well, that'd be great.
The meditation journey is also, something which is totally alive, meaning like it itself evolves and changes,
Yeah,
So because the clarity with which we understand meditation and our capacity to practice grows.
yeah,
So yeah, I have two practices that I share with people. One is a very simple beginner's practice. Of course, I can send you the link to it if you want to share this in
yeah,
another video, which is a simple awareness of sensation. Like it is as what we discussed earlier, it is a learning to bring your attention away from thoughts and anchoring that attention into body sensation.
yeah,
It's a simple thing, right? It's nothing crazy. Like the mind thinks, oh, I need something crazy or mystical or like advanced. No,
exactly.
when it comes to spirituality, it's about simplicity. Whatever
Yeah,
is simple is truthful. Whatever is complex and crazy is usually mentally fabricated. So
right.
the beginner practice is learning to anchor your attention in sensation, because when your attention is anchored in body sensation, sensation doesn't come with a story. The mind tries to create a story about it and everything else, but it's like when you're just your attention is anchored in sensation, there is no commentary. The moment you lose awareness of sensation, once again you will start, your attention will go into thoughts. So in the beginning phases of meditation, our main goal is to start to de-energize the mind, take attention away from thoughts, disengage, because in doing so, we grow in presence. We grow in the noticing of the presence, which is prior to thoughts, which is more intimate than thoughts, more true, more real. You know,
Yeah.
so that is the first thing. Whereas that's what transforms into self inquiry. Self inquiry, instead of awareness of sensation, it is awareness of awareness. It is a total full stop. It
Yeah.
is a stepping completely out of, oh, I am Alex and I'm living my like that perspective into
Yeah.
simply being. So
Hmm.
this is a little subtler and more
Yeah.
advanced, but
It
awareness
is
of
subtle.
sensation is like the step to it.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to do that because you can only focus on one thing at a time, right? And if you're focused on the body sensation, one thing that I've discussed before, and this again, this is an experience that I've had tangibly, at music festivals or whatever, and in the presence of psychedelics, but it's almost like what I've experienced in those circumstances was my awareness being pulled out from me from behind, and it's almost like now I'm seeing myself in the third person, like a video game character. And when I've been walking around in these experiences and these memories that I've had, my body, I'm like detached from my body almost in a way where I'm controlling the character rather than me identifying super hard in first person with the character. It's like I'm in the third person. And I call it like the observer mode because your awareness is behind you. And it's very interesting to me as well that in Vadim Zeland's book, Tufti the Priestess, he also talks about this. And he talks about the plate being this thing on the back of your neck, which is how I kind of experienced it as well, which is like my awareness was pulled out and I could like see myself almost. And, I don't know if you have experience, like, there's people talk about out of body experiences and astral projection. I've had experiences not with those necessarily, but with lucid dreaming. And lucid dreaming has been an incredibly powerful tool that I've used as far as like manifesting, as far as like getting in touch with uh, like that kind of like what Vadim Zeland calls like external intention in transurfing, right? Where it's just like you're kind of composing reality. When you have a lucid dream, you're composing it to your choosing, to your liking, when you start to have control over the dream. And I feel very much that reality is like a dream. But when we're cut off from these awarenesses that we're talking about, we lose our power to exert control, to to choose what that dream looks like. I'm curious your thoughts on any of these things. And yeah,
Yeah. You know, like as we grow in the understanding of our true nature and as we start to become more established in a deeper, subtler awareness, um, these types of experiences, like where you start to see yourself in third person and everything, that's fine, but they are experiences. The way we experience things doesn't actually change, right? Like, so of course, it still feels like it appears that I am the body doing and everything, but just your understanding changes. Your identification, like where you place your sense of self, changes. So that's the different thing. So when we begin practicing meditation, we shouldn't think that like, hey, the way my experience appears will change. The experience will continue to appear as it has always appeared, but your entire understanding of it is what starts to shift. You start to become more established in a much subtler place. And again, like the way that it's appearing, you will be the same, but it's like how we understand ourselves to be is different.
yeah.
Now I know the appearance to be an appearance rather than
Yeah.
taking it to be my truth, my reality, what I am.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's the difference.
it's interesting that you say that because I feel like what I'm describing almost is like the physical manifestation of the understanding you're describing. Because it's like, oh yeah, this is me, but it's like the awareness that this is me, but it's not really me. Because it's like I was having a tangible experience of my awareness being higher than me, and in the form of like me seeing myself. And so like I'm not sure. Have you had any experiences like that where you kind of dissociate from your body or anything like that at any point,
Luckily, no.
or yeah,
I
luckily no.
actually, I actually say to everybody to not chase any mystical experiences,
Yeah.
but instead
And
seek to grow in clarity.
would you
Clarity is far more valuable than mystical experiences.
would you include lucid dreaming in that? Like, have you done that at all or no?
Never felt drawn to it, but
Okay.
again, like if our desire is to understand the truth of who we are, then
Hmm.
things like lucid dreaming won't be of help to that. Lucid dreaming can be helpful in unlocking some insights into like
Hmm.
the malleable nature of experience, and
Yeah.
it also helps you draw a parallel to waking reality,
Yeah.
right? You see that like,
Yeah.
hey, this is also very dreamlike. But to you are that awareness in both dream and waking experience appear. Waking
Yeah.
and dream experience are changeful appearances. You are prior to that. You are that in which they appear, out of which they are made. So to really grow in the understanding of that, we have to shift our focus away from experiences towards that which
Yeah.
sees experiences.
Man, it's super interesting talking to you because I feel like on one hand, like I kind of get what you're saying, but maybe I'm not seeing things at as high of a level as you are because I'm still coming from the framework of like tools, and so like I talk about affirmations, visualizations, scripting, journaling, and to me, I've read actually about like Nikola Tesla, right, and how he would come up with some of his inventions and stuff. And some of these other really great inventors, they actually did receive the insights in their dreams. So I still think that some of these things can be used as tools for, receiving insights, intuition, or, just kind of like being in alignment with with those things and getting those downloads.
Yeah, in that degree, in that regard, it can benefit, like in terms of growing as a person
Hmm.
or using it to live life in a different way. Yeah.
Yeah.
When it comes to
I've I've had because I've had
introspection,
insights. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah. Introspection. Yeah, but I've had insights and dreams that where I'm just like, wow, and then it's like kind of showed me like again, it's been like a download type of experience where it's like, okay, now this is what I need to do because like you said, it
Yeah,
it can draw parallels for your life very well.
beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not sure how much more time you have. I'm enjoying this conversation a lot, but if you need to go, then I totally understand it because we're over an hour here at this point. But if you have a few more minutes, we
If you
can
have,
cover a
yeah,
couple
sure.
more
If you
things.
have anything else, we can cover it.
Yeah. So, I guess a couple more questions that I had here was like how to experience more synchronicities in life. But now the way what you're telling me is like not to be chasing, not to be chasing synchronicities or those experiences. So I guess, we don't necessarily need to go into that, but um, like I guess practices, I mean, because it seems like all of this stuff that you talk about kind of leads back like to the same road. But the last couple questions I had was like, what are your practices for manifesting? And how does action and discipline and like tie into goal achievement and peak performance in your opinion? Now, and also these tools of visualization, affirmations, journaling, scripting, do you utilize them still, or are you more just focused on like the kind of practices that we've been talking about that you're talking about, the
Yeah,
meditation?
yeah, great. So yeah, previously when I used to share the manifestation teachings on my channel, I used to practice all of those things. A lot of
Right.
visualization, a lot of intention setting, goal setting, and then like the New Zealand says, right, like take a lot of action as well.
Yeah.
So how that has changed for me as I've grown and matured in my spiritual understanding, and as I've sort of like shifted my focus, is I no longer focus too much on the manifesting aspect.
Hmm.
But of course, that doesn't mean that I don't do anything. As you may see, like I'm quite active and I put out a lot of videos and everything like that. So I've just
Yeah.
changed the way that I do things. Of course, I still set like, fairly like every now and then, like goals, personal goals, professional goals. But I look at them as more superficial rather than like, oh, things I absolutely need to achieve. So they're like,
Yeah.
they just, I've noticed that on the personal level, you always need to keep growing and you always are moving towards something. It is an ever expanding journey. So that shouldn't be
Hmm.
neglected. So you play that role. And I just try to like see, okay, what am I here for? Right. Like, what, how can I bring the greatest value into the work that I do, into the people that watch and I'm able to serve? So that is the main driving component for my work now. And I just sort of
So,
like see into like based on intuition how I
hmm
wish to present that, how I wish to go about that, what I wish to create, and then I do that. And the entire journey that unfolds from that I use for the understanding of self. It's
yeah,
like a arena for spiritual practice. Yeah.
cool. So yeah, so like at this point in time, you're not actively doing like you said you may set a couple goals here and there, right? Probably in the background of your mind, you're like, yeah, I'd like to, make reach this number of amount of money a month or whatever it is. But do you then on a day-to-day basis, then you're just kind of you get into the meditative state and you kind of allow your ideas and those intuitions to go? Do you visualize at all like any specific end outcome, or do you affirm to your do you, what how is your self-talk throughout the day?
Yeah. So I will just also clarify that like when you start to live in a more surrendered state, and
Hmm.
when your focus is shifting from trying to manifest towards acceptance of what is in this moment.
Yeah.
It's not that you
Yeah.
like, don't live an orderly life where you're just constantly just flowing with the breeze. Because, actually you can only live in that way when you do have an orderly life. So of course there is
Exactly.
discipline, there is order, because you see if all the foundations of your life are very shaky, if there's no
Yeah.
discipline, if there's no order, if there's no like prioritization of what
Hmm.
like clear prioritization of what's important to you, then because of those shaky foundations you can never build anything on top of it. you can
Exactly.
you
Exactly.
can you can you can't even practice surrender, you can't even practice the subtler
Exactly.
meditation
Because
teachings.
yeah, because your whole outer reality is falling apart. So yeah,
Exactly.
and
So
and
on
that's what's
the
yeah. Go ahead.
sorry, yeah.
That no, that's what's hard for me to reconcile, right? Because on one hand, it's like doing both. So that's why I'm so, intrigued by your approach with
That's the
this.
thing. That's the that like we know once you start settling this subtler teachings, you start to see that you have to tread both realms of existence. On one level,
Hmm.
there's nothing to do, there's nothing to become. You simply are, and you are complete here and now. But on the level of appearance, there's always something to do, and there's always falling in and out of balance. So it needs order, it needs discipline. Otherwise, it's total
Hmm.
chaos, and
Yeah.
you will lose touch with the subtler realm of nothing to do, nothing to become, if you don't have this realm of appearance properly organized. So
Hmm.
yes, like I have a daily routine, and of course, like the what the routine is changes based on the phase of my life. But of course,
Hmm.
there's like a daily routine. I go to bed at a certain time. I wake up at a certain time. I do my meditation practices at a certain time. I work at a
Hmm.
certain time. I have time for enjoyment. Like all that stuff it is structured in
Yeah.
that way, and I found that that is what has allowed me personally to then devote my life to the higher, subtler teachings. And then you
Yeah.
stay in touch with something greater than just a day to day mundane life.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, like, during those work periods, do you find that you just are like, oh, I'm gonna work from this block to this block, and then you allow that kind of intuition to kind of inform in the background, like your
It's
creative
actually
process?
quite practical stuff. Like the day before, I towards like the evening or night, I just
Hmm.
see that okay, what's coming up tomorrow, and what do I have to do? What do I have to get done?
Hmm.
And I'll write those things down, and then literally the next day, I just do those things because I've seen that
Yeah.
like, hey, when
Yeah.
the mind doesn't know exactly what has to be done at what time, things
Hmm.
never get done. But when you
Right. Right.
create a like specific like when the
Structure.
mind
Yeah.
yeah, when the mind knows, hey, I have to get this done at this particular time, it's very good at just
Hmm.
performing that task. When you leave it up
Yeah.
in the air, it will procrastinate forever. So I go
Right.
about work in a very practical way where it's like, hey, um, this has to be done today and in this order, and then I just simply do it in that order. And I do
Yeah.
find that, you know, working in a focused manner for spurts of time is very useful. And then you can
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
just relax and we have like a period of time where you're maybe just checking your social media or just relaxing or something. But then when you do
Hmm.
work again, you work in a focused way where you're not like
Yeah.
indulging. The one thing I would recommend everyone to do, it's like stop having all these tabs open. Stop like
Yeah.
having all these screens open. It's like you
I'm
have
so
you have your you have your like laptop, and then we're like on social media, and then we have the TV running. Like that's just too much. It doesn't allow for any focused work to be done, and it actually only breeds overwhelm inside of us.
yeah,
So
I
it's
need
like
to. I literally have like so many tabs open right now as we're recording this. But that is one thing that I just am a huge. I agree. I couldn't agree more that like focus, deep work. That's why it's a non-negotiable for me. People try to
yeah,
tell me, oh, like why are you working? Like oh, like no, like I'm having this 3 to 4 hour period, whatever it is. Like don't expect that I'm gonna return your whatever it is. I mean, if it's an important urgent thing that's related to business, related to what, but it's like my work. So this isn't like social time. Um,
These are really just
and
practical things that, help us. Like these are the
mhm,
foundations we need to build. Like I have my
mhm,
notifications off for everything. I don't get any notifications on my phone on any
yeah,
app. I
yeah,
have like my entire YouTube feed and Facebook feed blocked just because like I
yeah.
know that if you leave that door open, the mind is weak. It will get caught up
It's
in it.
weak. It's so
But if
weak.
you just
And I
if you set yourself up for success, then then mind doesn't
yeah,
miss those things as much.
it's like the book Atomic Habits. Like you set up your
Yeah,
environment for
yeah.
success, and it's so much
Exactly.
easier to
Exactly.
do. One thing that practice that I did was doing for a while was like time chunking the day. So I'd divide it into three sections. And I think that can be good too, because then you know, okay, this section is for work, this is for more leisure
Exactly.
time in the evening with my family or whatever it might be. And yeah, man, and that's why like I love taking like a holistic approach. I think that a lot of people in the manifesting community just get very dogmatic and they just listen to this or this, and it's like like really that holistic what Vadim talks about self development, self improvement, working on yourself. I like to go to the gym. I like to eat healthy. Do you eat?
Mhm.
Do you eat healthy? Do you try to eat pretty clean yourself? Or
Yes, for sure.
yeah,
It's a
yeah,
must because like otherwise you can just see the state of your mind and body will
oh yeah.
it will not be
It
conducive to this type of work.
it devolves immediately, and it's so funny to me that when we start eating clean, immediately we can tell when we're
Yeah.
not. We just feel like so much worse. Do you work out at all? Do you have any physical routine that you do?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I don't do any crazy workouts, but yeah, like I
Yeah,
exercise
yeah,
also on a daily
yeah.
basis.
Yeah, so I think it's all important and it's all like well-rounded. Well, I
Of
have
course,
like
a
one
holistic
last,
approach is important. We can never
yeah,
we should always also just through experimentation see what is best. See what is like of course we try to implement advice of other people, but it's like through your own journey and
yeah,
experimentation,
mhm,
we have to see what's right for me.
right, exactly. Last question before we end this is like, I know that you're not on the manifesting tip anymore so much, but do you have any like crazy manifesting stories that you'd be willing to share, or anything that happened that was just like, wow, like you put out that intention and you received it, and yeah, I would just love to hear if any
Yeah.
success story that you think is relevant that
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
audience would enjoy.
Well, I mean, that's how my journey started. Like initially it became these teachings came to me because I had a spinal injury. So for many years I
Oh,
was, suffering that. And
wow,
so
I didn't know that.
yeah, that was like the beginning of my journey. That's why I was even open to practicing any of these things.
Were you like unable to? You were physically kind of
Yeah,
debilitated from that?
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
How
Like, yeah,
long? For how long was
for
that?
about 6 years.
Oh my
And
gosh.
yeah, so it was a lot of painful years.
Wow. That
So
is
that
so
itself,
yeah.
that itself was the first thing that really made me understand that hey, like there's more to this life than what I currently perceive. So that whole healing journey
Yeah.
that came from that was one of the signs for me. Hey, like I can start to change myself. And then
Yeah.
from there, of course, the I wanted to really find my passion. Like during that time, I was about to graduate college and going down the conventional route. I had a job in finance lined up. And
Mhm.
so, but I had, because I was discovering these things very deeply, I
It
was no
didn't
longer
resonate.
passionate about that.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to find my passion and do it for a living. So that was
Did
like the next goal for me. Go ahead. What you were
and
about
you
to ask.
kind of like you kind of like had this that knowing as well, like maybe at a more subtle level than I did, but that you wanted to create videos?
At that time, no. But so what I did was I went, for about summer break was about to come up. That was my last
Uh-huh.
year in college. So what I wanted to do is I just wanted to be alone because I
Yeah.
wanted to discover like, hey, where do I want to take my life? So what I did was like
Yeah.
did a I used to live in New York at the time, and I did like a cross country trip alone through train. So I would just travel I wanted to do from like East Coast to West Coast. I stopped
Mhm.
in Chicago, was my first stop for a few days. Then I went to Salt Lake City, then Denver, then San Francisco. And I spent like about 10 days in each place. I spent all my money at that time because I just felt so drawn. I was like, hey, I need to do
Doing
this.
that. Yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
scary at the time because I was like, nothing good may come of this. I may still at the
Mhm.
end of the summer have no idea what I want to do. But
Mhm.
every single day during that time, during that trip, it wasn't just for leisure. It was really like as a self-discovery trip. And I'm
Yeah.
glad I took that. And like that's where I started to just get a little hunches about like, hey, what I need to do. During that trip, I started my blog because at that time I thought I wanted to like do blogging.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And then I started my Instagram at that time. And then
Mhm.
little by little, because I was again, I told you it took me a year and a half to start my YouTube channel.
Yeah.
On that trip, I got the hunch that I wanted to, but I didn't for like
Yeah.
another year. But yeah, then
To this
gradually I became more clear on that.
to your point, I think it's very important, like for young people, to kind of get out of the influence of their parents, for the bird to leave the
Yeah,
nest, so to speak, because your family and all these people that you've grown up with, and your peers, included your friends from high school, whatever, everyone's just in your ear all the time, and you really don't get that sense of self. You lose your sense of self by being surrounded by these people that have you locked into a certain image of how they perceive you. And leaving your town, going on this trip as you did. I went out to LA. I moved it to LA, where I didn't have any family. I didn't really have any
yeah,
friends in
yeah.
LA either. I just left right after college. And I think that it's very important, like for you to realize and for you to become your own person, and have those insights and those that
Absolutely.
clarity on what it is that you want in your life. Otherwise, your program is going to be run and continue to run by those parental figures who have seen you as a child growing up, and they see you like this, and they want to. And it's not even that I'm blaming the parents. That's just kind of how they want the best for you in most cases, but that's just the way that it is. Like that's why the birds leave the nest,
Yeah.
um and there was something else I was going to say about that, but so that yeah, so this trip happened, and so like was this tied in with like a manifesting thing? Do you think that that
Well,
was
that exactly, that's what started my entire like manifesting journey at that time. And then from there, I was able to discover
how
my
did you
passion, start making videos, start creating a whole business around it. At that time,
how
what
did
the
you
main thing I wanted was I wanted to travel. So from
yeah,
there, I also was able to, start traveling the world and everything like that, like multiple times per year. It was
yeah,
awesome.
from the money you were making off of like your coaching and whatnot.
Exactly.
Yeah. How did you run into the manifesting information, and what did you run into at first? Was it like this? I know a lot of people saw The Secret, or like what
I
caught
think
your
for me,
attention?
it
What got you started?
was the book Seven Spiritual Laws of Success by Deepak Chopra.
Okay.
That was
I don't
like
know if I've actually read that one.
yeah, no, that was, it's a very, very simply written book. Again, it's on the seven spiritual laws of success. So it just helps you
Yeah.
it teaches you how to get into alignment with the laws of nature in regards to
Yeah.
everything that you do, right? How to live your life to create well being and abundance in your life. And then, of course, I came into the teachings of Abraham Hicks and,
Yeah.
Dean Zealand. Reality transurfing was one of my favorite like ways of seeing manifestation, because it
Same.
wasn't so just like, oh, imagine and then it'll just poof up in like, it actually, he gave you a really distinct framework on how
Yeah.
to go about.
Practical.
Exactly. Like
Approachable. Yeah.
it bridged both the mystical and the practical components.
hmm
So I
hmm
really deeply resonated with it. So
Yeah.
that's what I usually like talked about the most on my channel back in the day.
Yeah. And I would guess, like, obviously, you having that spinal injury, like, led you to draw your curiosity towards these different topics and things. That did you use that when you started reading some of these, coming across this
Exactly,
material?
exactly. And that's
Yeah.
why I say to everybody that, like, hey, your greatest problems and challenges right now are the thing that are going to serve as the catalyst for your life to become whatever it
Yeah.
is going to be. So don't look
I
at
know.
them as your enemy. Use them. See what they are pointing you to, the lesson they're trying to
Yeah.
teach you. That's the way it was
Yeah.
always for me.
Absolutely. And so just yeah, we're gonna wrap this video up. During that time, you said you were still going to college while you were injured. Were you actually physically going to class? How long was the period
Yeah,
that
yeah,
you
yeah.
were
So,
kind of
actually, when I had it actually started in high school in around 10th grade. And for the
uh
first few years, it was extremely bad. Whereas, like, I was able to go to school, but I really struggled also because, like, of
yeah,
course,
yeah. Did you
I could walk around, but it was always with like a limp, and I was
crutches?
always afraid that, hey, I hope nobody pushes me or anything like that, or anything like that.
Yeah.
Like when guys just play around with each other or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. Did
Yeah.
you have
So
crutches at any point?
no crutches, no. But
Okay.
so it was like a pain that used to go from my spine to all the way down to
Shoot down.
my legs. So
Yeah,
I remember after I came back from school, I just used to like lay in bed. But yeah,
yeah,
so when I went
yeah.
away to college, like it was a little better, but I
hmm
was still experiencing great limitation from it, a lot of
Yeah.
pain. Towards the end of college, when I started to discover these teachings, and I discovered also the teachings of Ayurveda, which is like a system of holistic like eating and physical
hmm
well-being. So that was like the start of my journey.
Awesome. Sunny, thank you so much for being here. I really, really enjoyed this conversation. I think that we covered so many different things, and your
Yeah.
perspective and your just the way that you just not even communicate. You're just your being is just something that people can learn from. People can simply just watch your content, absorb that, how to have that relaxed, calm approach, and kind of, that stillness, that silence. And it's something that a lot of us could use more of in our lives. And so, very thankful for you to share your time here. And I'm going to leave, for everybody watching this, I'm going to leave all of Sonny's links down below so you can check out his channel, check out his coaching and his material. And with that being said, yeah, also the meditation links. Those are going to be really, really helpful and valuable for people as well. So
Thank you very
thank you
much.
so
Yeah,
much,
thank you
Sonny.
for having me. It was a pleasure speaking to you.
Yeah,
It was wonderful.
yeah. Thank you. All right, guys. Hit this video with a like, drop a comment down below unless you let us know what you thought about this, and hit us with a subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.